Magic has a lot of almost like takebacks at this point.
No, take that back.
All right. Take it back.
Like when you're in a Magic match and something happens that two people don't agree on, the judges kind of just rewind it to the point you guys agree and say, go again. Which I think is great for Magic. It is just a shock to the system for someone who played in the time when we would lovingly refer to as prison rules. At the Pro Tour I won in Chicago, round one of day two, we get to the table. A guy gets there right before time is called, but he's shuffling up quick. He presents his deck. He won the roll. He's going first. We look at our hands, says he's good. I'm like, yeah, this works for me. And he goes, okay, go. And I immediately just snap, draw a card, lay a land, and say, okay, your turn. And he's like, what? Doesn't even call a judge, because that was just the way it went back then. Doesn't even call a judge, just goes, you're right, I said go. And my oath deck that year had a trade routes in it. And so I went land go because he hadn't dropped a land. He plays his land. I play the second land in trade routes. He plays his second mountain. And then I untap. I don't have a third land. I just say go. He drops his third land, and I find out from him later his hand is like pillage, stone rain, and something else. And he just can't cast any of it. It won't do anything. And then a turn later, I'm able to impulse at the end of his turn, and I draw out of it. Where if he actually just lays a land on turn one, he demolishes me. Like, he blows up one of my lands, and then while I just have one land in play, because he doesn't realize there's no more, he just bounces it every turn. I can never impulse. I never have mana open to brainstorm. I'm just locked out of the game for turn after turn until he has 7 lands out, and that's that. So, yeah, I mean, those were prison rules. I think it's way better now the way it is. It's just very hard for me to come to terms with. I just grew up in a different era. I mean, I grew up checking everybody's cards for marked cards. I grew up watching people to see if they double nickeled, then I had to nickel their deck once, because if it was stacked, then it would pull the lands back out. Like, it was you had to watch for everything because there were angles everywhere.
I used to play really by the rules. I mean, I'd be a stickler about it, but I followed them myself, and I'd expect to get called on it too. And some of them were flat out ridiculous. Like if you had a Kajordan Outpost, okay, it's a land. It has an ability, 2 mana and tap it, make a 1/1. I'm telling you, if you took 2 lands and that outpost and tapped them at the same time, and then went to put a token in play, nope. You have 3 mana in your pool. You didn't make a token. I think if you say something like make a token and do it, I would tap my 2 lands and then go activate my outpost. Very deliberately like that. So, I mean, when you have rules like that, a lot of people are getting, like, that one was ridiculous. Some people would play, Mike kind of played this way, I feel like, where if Mike took a damage from his pain land, that was basically up to you to write it down. You noticed his land damage. I would write my own down, for instance. I didn't take it that far. Some things I might have done that are pretty bad. Like if I want to win a game, like I like to win a game that I'm not supposed to win. Like try to find a way they'll have to mess so and so up. Maybe like I start looking at their graveyard during my turn when they have an upkeep effect. And then I'm like, all right, your go. I'm still kind of looking at their graveyard, and then they're more likely to draw and not pay their upkeep. That's pretty bad. But I mean, when you can't even tap 3 lands for an outpost, it didn't seem that bad at the time. Mike would kind of practice with me, like what he could get away with. Like it wasn't even stuff that was blatant cheating. Like the card Diabolic Edict got printed and we were playing, and Mike would just go Edict and point it right at my creature, my best one. So if I put my hand on it, that's back then it was like you put your hand on the card or whatever, that's showing I'm going to sacrifice it. So that kind of stuff was more the cheating that I'm used to back then, not taking damage from your lands. I didn't see a lot of drawn extra cards. I think people probably did it. I definitely didn't see the like marked stuff. Well, if you didn't have sleeves, your cards might be marked, but the kind of stuff like that was later generation, I feel like, or stacking decks and all that sort of thing. I'm sure there was some of it, but I didn't think it was rampant back then. I didn't see this. I wasn't even at this tournament, but this is maybe I was super impressed by this that Mike did this. And I might butcher this story a little bit because it's an old story, but he's at the Pro Tour. It's the pre-release sealed deck Pro Tour they had of Mirage. And he's getting attacked. He's dying to a Frenetic Freed, which is a 2/1 flyer. You can flip a coin to try to save it from a spell or whatever. So Mike has a card called Soul Rend. And usually cards would say like destroy target white creature, draw a card. This one was a different wording. It said destroy target creature. If it is white, draw a card. Basically, you could cycle it on like a green creature. Well, Mike has the Soul Rend in his hand. So he plays it up like, oh, I hate having to play a game on a coin flip, blah, 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 making a big deal of it. And he's like, Soul Rend it. And the guy flips the coin. It wouldn't have killed. He could have just said, okay. So to me, like, that's genius. And to me, that's like, man, that's awesome. That's a great way to win. Nowadays, that'd probably even be frowned upon. But as far as blatant cheating, I saw very little of it. And Mike worked with me kind of to show me what to look for, to not get cheated a lot. So
people, when I tell these stories these days, people just can't believe it. I mean, there is this sort of common sense that everybody was a savage cheater back in the 90s, but it's just that the rules didn't really catch up with the knowledge amongst the players, right? I mean, the back printing of cards, I don't think the people that printed the cards knew this, right? They even had a Pro Tour in LA where it was like Mirage block draft, and all the lands they handed out were Ice Age lands. And you could see at every table. I mean, I didn't even do particularly well at that PT, so I ended up watching other people play in the day too. You can watch every match. People would like look at their opening hand, and then they would look at the top of their library, like, is that a land? Because it was so clear, right? Like because the Ice Age cards are so much brighter. But I guess these kind of things, like me and Tommy Hobby were two of the top back of card readers, I think. So a few tournaments later, he also in Los Angeles in like a block constructed PT, we're playing a control mirror where he has lobotomy. No, I have lobotomy. I lobotomy him. The spell where you get to choose a card in his hand, and he shows me his hand, which is rubbish, and he's like, "Oh, that's fine. I was gonna draw a land next turn anyway." So he was like, "You're doing me a favor." But then I actually called a judge on him, and I took up his deck, and I could pick up every land card from his deck. Like the cards were so marked. Yeah, I remember when Tommy Hobie was walking around the night before the Pro Tour, he wanted to borrow cards, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I have these cards." He's like, "Yeah, you have them, but they're the American printing, so they're not the back of cards that I want." Like he wanted the specific printings to have a distinguishable back of cards. And I guess when this knowledge was sort of approached to judges, that's how they fixed it eventually. I mean, we as players brought it to the judges, and then they had to change it.
There's one point where like there's this card Serrated Arrows. It comes into play with 3 tokens on it, right? You tap it, give a creature -1/-1. And this wasn't against me, but it's a funny Jason Gordon story. He's playing at Worlds. I think it's a Chris Pakula story. And he plays the Serrated Arrows, reaches down, and he's like, "Judge, do you have any coins or anything I can use for Serrated Arrows?" He didn't have any tokens. And Judge comes over and gives him, pulls 3 coins out of his pocket, drops them on there, Judge walks away. And Jason looks at his opponent, he's like, "I've made $4 so far this week." So I'm actually playing Serrated Arrows against Jason Gordon at the Pro Tour, the one I wind up winning. And I used the last counter on his end step, and he's like, "Well, put it in your graveyard." So I just put it in my graveyard. He's like, "Okay, well, you're done with my end step now because it must be your turn." Because the trigger to have Serrated Arrows destroy itself for not having any counters on it is an upkeep trigger. So suddenly I must be on the next turn. And I just looked at him and put it back into play and just, I don't know. He didn't push. I just was not letting him have it. But that was the sort of thing where he definitely talked some people into that. I I don't think it works if he calls a judge over. He didn't bother calling a judge over, but like he was gonna try. If I was gonna let him get away with that, he was gonna like that. It's funny too, because like my memory of that is just my stomach drops. Like, oh God, did I step into one of these? Did I actually let him get away with something? Anyway, that's I don't think that made for a pleasant environment, but that certainly was the world of 1997, 1998. Magic has evolved now where the judges will back you up to the point of ambiguity, and you're not going to be able to get somebody with, oh, are you done? Or, or can I bolt you was the other weird one. Like, well, if I'm allowed to bolt you, then you must have yielded priority. So your turn's over. That was the big one. That was even worse than the are you done is can I bolt you? And if you say yes, they're like, well, you yielded priority. I'm not going to bolt you, but your turn's over. And the game has evolved to where no, none of that works anymore, right? None of that works. But you see the cleverness in it, right? I mean, it's almost funny that somebody thought of that, and I'm sure got away with it a couple of times before the judges were just like, no, we're not going to let any of that stuff fly anymore.
Yeah, I remember one time it was for some like regionals tournament. I was pretty sure my opponent had like stacked their mana against me. Yeah, I wasn't sure, so I just did like pile like 6 piles, but it's I've seen it's 3 piles. So I'm like, look, if they shuffled their deck's still shuffled, and if they didn't, well then almost all their lands are going to be clumped together. It turned out that they got like like a 6 land hand or whatever and kept it, and so who really knows for sure. It's even possible that nowadays, I don't know, like doing what I did might have been like, I don't know, maybe I would, maybe in current rules it would be like, oh, like what I did was not random. I don't know. At the time it was totally fine, and I was like, well, if he's not cheating, he's got a random deck, and if he is cheating in the way that I think he might have been, well, then he's gonna have screwed himself. But I mostly suspect the real savage cheaters were using it much more against other players, and they would be much less likely to use it against me because I think I would have been much more likely to catch it.
Thanks for watching. If you like the video, the best way to support us is to buy a t-shirt. After that, you can like, share, subscribe, join the Discord, join the Patreon, and leave a comment about what story you want to see next.